Alright, good morning. Sorry I couldn't be with you this morning, but I just thought maybe, since I'm not here to answer questions, I thought maybe we just briefly go over a few things that you may want to know, you may want to remember. So a few things to point out. So remember the difference between all these symbols. So we've got big T, we've got little f, and we've got big F. Okay? So period, frequency, and force. So when I have an equation like the force of a spring equals negative kd, that gives me the force, not the frequency. So how would I find the frequency? Well, first I'd have to find the period using this equation here. Oops. Pardon me, 2 pi square root of m over k. And if I do this equation, that'll give me the period, which brings me to my next thing that I think maybe you should remember, which is if you know the period, how do you find the frequency? And remember that the frequency is 1 divided by the period, and the period is 1 divided by the frequency. So, for example, if I said something has a period of 11 seconds, find the frequency, how would I do that? It's just as simple as going 1 divided by 11 and putting that in your calculator, and you'll get something like well, I don't have a calculator here, but you'll get something, right? So that's all you do to find the frequency. And then whenever you do that, just remember to include your units, because if you don't include your units, it'll hurt your grade on the test. Okay, so that's period and frequency. The other thing that you need to remember is if I say something like there are 12 oscillations in 24 seconds, and then I say find period and frequency, you have to remember the difference, right? You have to remember that should say and. You have to remember that that period is time divided by number of oscillations. I'm not going to give you this equation on the test. Whereas frequency is number of oscillations divided by time. So in this case, the period would be 24 over 12, or 2 seconds, whereas the frequency would be 12 over 24, or 0.5 hertz. Make sure you know the different types of interference. Make sure that you can identify this type of interference where they're on top of each other like this, and be able to name that, versus the type of interference that's more like this, where they're exactly out of phase with each other. Make sure that you know what each of these are called, and you can tell me what happens in each of these cases. So with that, what we're going to do is the sub will give you maybe 2 or 3 minutes here before you start the test to maybe talk to each other, and then when the sub says so, go ahead and put everything away, and except for calculator and pencil, and good luck.